Hello, I'm Jana, and welcome to part 2 of the Christmas Ideology Elements and Alterations. If you'd like to see which supplies we're going to be using today, go ahead and pause here. All right, let's head over to the crafty corner. For our next technique, we're going to be pulling in some Ideology baubles. This is an absolutely classic Tim Holtz technique, and it's one of the earliest holiday techniques that I learned during the Tim Holtz live sessions. So we're going to be coloring a few of these baubles with some alcohol ink. I'm not going to go the vintage route with the mushroom, but we're going to be coloring some of these with a dash of aqua. So I've got a handful of baubles in this cup. I'm using little plastic cups from the dollar store, and we're just going to take some of the alcohol ink and I'm going to drip on maybe 5 drips. This is a pretty pale color, so it doesn't hurt to add a bit extra. And then we're just going to take that and shake it. There we go. We've got some lovely colored baubles. I like this one. It's a quick and easy technique, and once we're done, we just dump them out on a paper towel and let them dry. If you want to go the vintage route, you could add a dash of mushroom alcohol ink after the fact and give it a second shake, and you'd get a lovely speckled vintage look. But today I'm going for clean and classic. Okay, let's set these aside and move on to our next technique. For our next alteration, we're going to be using a bottle brush tree. I love the shape of these new bottle brush trees. The skinny ones have such a delightful shape. Now, we're going to be bringing in a paper towel. This is to catch some of the distress spray stain that we're going to be using. Here, we are going to be working with a modified version of the Tim Holtz Ombre tree effect. I want to do a partial ombre, and we're going to start with a layer of rustic wilderness that we're going to be spritzing right onto the tree. And I have a cup of water off to the side because I do want to take some of the ink off, but I'm not going for the 3 ink layer. So we're just going to take the distress spray stain and we're going to spritz very liberally on the tree. I want to make sure that we've got plenty of color soaked into those natural fibers. Okay, so just touching up a few spots, that looks pretty good. And we can even use that same paper towel to squish away some of that color when we dip it into the water. So now we're going to pull in our water and we're going to take that bottle brush tree and we're going to dip about 2/3 of it into the cup. Okay, so let's go ahead and dip this right in and see what we get. With the paper towel, we're going to be blotting away the extra water and color. We're just giving that tree a good squeeze, and right away, you can see the color change. We're going to add a bit of distress glitter to the tree. And to do that, I'm going to be using some collage medium. So we're just going to squeeze some collage medium right onto the tree. And I just want to get little droplets on the edges of these branches, and then we can apply the glitter. So I'm just taking the nozzle and I'm just brushing that on, just trying to get the tips of the branches, and I'm just going to keep rotating the tree until I'm happy with the glue on here. Almost there. Okay, I don't want to go too heavy. We don't need to sparkle the tree too much because we will be adding some baubles to this at a later point. Okay, make sure the bottom branches have a nice layer of glue. Good. And I need some scrap paper so that I don't get distressed glitter everywhere. There we go. And, of course, we need glitter. Just taking the glitter. There we go. Sprinkling that on. Give that tree a good tap to get the extra glitter out. And there we go. We've got a nice subtle glitter on the tree. Looks like I could use a little bit more on this side. Good. Okay, definitely happy with the glitter on here. So we'll set this aside to dry and move on to our next technique. Next, we are going to be embellishing this holiday adornment. I love the detail on these wreaths. It is absolutely gorgeous. Our first step to add the distressed glaze will be to do a very thin layer of collage medium over the top of the wreath. The metal is a slick surface, and the embossing powder needs something to grip onto besides the embossing ink. So I'm just taking that collage medium and I'm just squishing it around with my fingers, trying to make sure that it's just the thinnest coat possible on here, because we don't want to lose any of that wonderful detail. Metal is a slick surface, and the embossing ink has a bad tendency of just sliding right off, and then we lose all the beautiful embossing powder. Okay, so that is looking good. For applying the embossing ink, I'm going to be wanting an embossing pen. Okay, I'm going to start first on the ribbon and the berries, and we're just going to zoom in so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just taking the embossing pen and I'm trying to go over each of those little detailed spots to make sure that I've got ink on it. This is definitely harder on metal because you can't really see where the ink has been, but we're going to do our best and see what we can do. Worst case, I can always go back and re-ink these later after the first layer of embossing. Okay, and now these berries. Okay, let's see how we did. Just going to tap this on here. I'm going to try to be fairly deliberate about where I place that red. Okay, and the berries. Okay. Let's tap that off. Let's see what we got. Okay. So I definitely missed some spots, but we can go back and add to that. I'm kind of thinking I might want to actually paint the ink on with another paintbrush. So we might try that next, but I got a good chunk of the berries, so I'm going to emboss what we've got, and we'll come back and try for a second layer. Okay, so we did get some embossing on here. You can see definitely on the berries that I was able to get those embossed, but the rest of this is pretty splotchy. So backup plan, we're going to be using the Distress Embossing Ink Re-Inker, and I'm going to try to paint that on very lightly with a paintbrush. Not the preferred method I want to do, but I think this is going to work. So I've got a paintbrush, and we're just going to very carefully paint the areas that we want embossed. Okay, I think that's going to work. But we'll see once we get the embossing powder on here and see if that is going to be sticky enough. Okay, I think I've got that pretty well covered. So now we're going to bring that scrap paper back. And I've got the ink. We'll go ahead and sprinkle. And let's see how that goes. Ooh, much better. Okay. Brushing off the little extra bits that we don't need. Okay, I can see a spot where I did not get the ink. I'm going to try to tap that on. I think that'll work. If I just take a pinch of that. Oh, yep. I think I got it. Okay. So we've now got a method to apply the embossing ink right to our adornment. We're going to kick the rest of this on fast forward as we alter the rest of the wreath and do our embossing. Let's take a closer look at this finished wreath and look at the detail on this and the colors. It looks so enamel. I love this. That's going to make a wonderful addition for a future creation. Okay, so we're just going to set that down, and now we're going to have a little bit of a blast from the past. We're going to be pulling in iron gates. Now, this was from an older Tim Holtz Halloween SKU, but just because something is from another season doesn't mean that we can't alter it to look more festive. Here we're going to be combining a couple of techniques that we've already used in order to alter this gate set. We're going to be combining embossing and Foundry wax. Right now, these look just a little spooky, but we can make these holiday festive. And to do that, we're going to be using some lumberjack plaid glaze, and we're going to be pulling in some Distress Foundry Wax Sterling. And in addition to that, I'll even be adding some faceted stars. So first, I want to add a little bit of collage medium onto the parts of the gate that is going to be getting the Distress glaze. So I'm just going to run a little bit of glue here. I'll smudge that out and then let it dry. Just want to make sure that our Foundry wax, not Foundry wax, our glaze has something to stick to. So just taking that and smudging it down. Good. And we'll do the same thing on this side. Okay, good. You know what? I'm feeling really impatient, so I'm going to see if I can't get the embossing glaze to just stick directly to the collage medium and jump over the step of the embossing ink. Might be able to, might not. The collage medium is drying relatively fast, which is what it is supposed to do. But let's see if I can't speed things up just a little bit. If we get a bit of the glaze in a place that we don't want, it's not going to matter because I can easily use the Foundry wax to cover it up. Okay, let's see how that stuck. That stuck pretty well. All right, I'm just going to brush off the parts that don't need the lumberjack plaid. Okay. So we'll just put the extra right back into the jar and we will emboss this. Okay, well that partially worked. Some of it stayed and some of it kind of peeled off, but that's okay. We'll just paint that on and add another layer. So, just taking that, taking our brush, and I'm just going to paint that ink right on here and we will do another layer of glaze. Okay, good. And let's get our scrap paper back. And add this. Good. So we'll go ahead and emboss this and see what we get. Okay, now we have the first part of our gate embossed. So next we want to be going in with some Distress Foundry Wax Sterling. And we're going to try to give this a good shake. This one is typically very hard to mix, but that's okay. We can make it work. Okay, I was actually able to pop the top off of this, and as you can see on the inside, that is pretty chunky, but that's okay. We're going to take a paintbrush and we're going to scoop some of that out and paint the gate. And I'm just going to give that a good mix at the same time. Ooh, that is really chunky and almost solidified. Okay, plan B. We're going to add some alcohol to this. And I'm going to... Yeah, I don't think I can save most of that. Okay. So, we're going to cut right into this. And I'm going to try to use some rubbing alcohol to reactivate some of the Foundry wax. As you can see, I've definitely used a lot, so it's not going to waste. And I'll try to use a lot right now. The bad thing is, now that I've cut into this, it is not going to be any more salvageable than this. I've pretty much got to use all of this right now. But that's okay. We have these lovely gates to alter. So I'm just going to be painting the Foundry wax directly onto the gate. And I'm actually going to do both gates back to back. So we're going to go ahead and put this on fast forward because I'm now working with a bit of a time crunch. Okay, let's take a look at the altered gates. Oh, this took a lot of doing. Several layers of Foundry wax and a few layers of glaze, but the end result is looking pretty cool. We've got some shiny gates with beautiful red accents, definitely saying holidays. Now, the last thing that we need to do in order to wrap up these gates will be to add a bit of collage medium and some beautiful faceted stars. So we're just going to take some collage medium, and I want to add a little bit here, 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 and here, just to give the gate a little bit more holiday shine. Okay, so we're just adding that on, and then we can drop our stars in. Let's see here. I think I want to do the big ones at the bottom. Yep, we'll just have them standing upright like that. Let me get the other one. That can go right here. Good. And then we'll put the smaller ones at the top. Okay. Right there should be good. And one more right there. Okay. I am definitely happy with these holiday gates. Okay. Now on to our last alteration. For our last ideology technique and alteration, we are going to be altering one of these really cool salvaged soldiers. This is brand new this year to the ideology line, and these are just, they are so fun. I absolutely love this. The texture, the look, it is really good. So we're going to be altering this with some distress paint. And the colors of distress paint that we're going to be using today include aged mahogany, lumberjack plaid, black soot, and dried marigold. So I'm just going to put a little bit of these paints down onto the media mat, and we're going to give the soldier a bit of a paint job. So that should be good. Don't need too much of the dried marigold. You can just make a small dot right here. Excellent. That's probably too much. Oh well. And then the lumberjack plaid. Ooh, you know what? I kind of want a little bit of gold as well. I might be able to add some golden accents. That would look really cool. Okay, good. So, I'm going to start with my lightest colors first, and then we're going to work towards our darker colors. Let's go ahead and zoom in a bit. There we go. All right, so I want to start with the face. And I'm just taking my paintbrush and I'm very carefully working on one spot at a time. And I'm just going to turn this in my hand so that I can get all the different angles. There we go. So if we just work systematically, we can go around the entire soldier and fill in the colors that we want. Let's see here. Hopefully that's showing up well on camera. So I just want to work my way around, slowly adding paint. There we go. That is looking good. So I'm just going to keep tapping that on. Maybe a little bit back here. A little there. I think I'll add some hair in the back as well. Alright, looks like I just need a little bit more around here. Now this is going to be interesting to see how much the plastic is going to agree with the paint. Sometimes I've needed to do 2 coats of paint when working on these salvaged pieces, and other times 1 coat has done quite nicely, but it really depends on the color. Okay. So, just working around here. Good. Alright, we're going to go ahead and put the rest of this on fast forward as I paint in the rest of the pieces. Okay, let's take a look at our soldier and see that finished paint job. And look at that. The paint went on pretty easily. I did have to do a little touch up on the red, but in general, that looks so cool. Distress paint, it just gives that perfect vintage vibe. Here are all of our completed Christmas Idea-ology pieces. This was so much fun. I absolutely love this year's Christmas collection. There are so many different pieces to play with, and we were even able to bring in a few old favorites to embellish as well. Today we have explored distress glitter, Ranger sparkle paste, distress spray stains, distress paint, Foundry wax, foiling, and even some distress glaze and a dash of Ranger Snowfall texture paste. I hope that you've enjoyed today's crafty adventures, and until next time, happy crafting!